So what would you do if you got a call that one of your grandparents died from one of these causes? Would you be surprised? I wish I could say I would be. Those deaths are pretty unexpected, right? That's why we call them deaths of despair, because they're preventable and unexpected. Did you know that people over the age of 75 had the highest rate of death by suicide in 2022? In 2023, there was an 11% increase in drug overdoses from the elderly population. Honestly, we have our healthcare system to blame. So it looks like a lot of healthcare plans offer prescription medications, preventative therapy. Here's the cold hard truth about our healthcare system. The individual has to pay for a lot of it. So if you can't afford healthcare, you can't really afford any of that. Ooh, but what about Medicare? That's like healthcare for old people, right? Everything costs extra in this day and age. Okay, so I did some research and I found this thing called Medicaid, which is supposed to help lower income individuals afford Medicare. So it looks like if you don't meet the minimum income requirement for Medicaid and Medicare is too expensive, you're kind of stuck in a nasty, tragic middle ground. Okay, fine. Let's say that you can afford Medicare. Now you have access to hundreds of controlled substances, and you probably haven't really been taught on the safe ways to use them. You know, elderly people who suffer from chronic pain are almost always treated with opioids. That's why 1 in 4 people who are prescribed opioids struggle with long-term addiction. Okay, so what do we do about it? Well, one, clearly we need to make healthcare cheaper because studies show that if you do have access to healthcare, it already decreases your chances of suicidal ideation. And let me just say, making healthcare cheaper in the past has worked. When Obama introduced Obamacare, opioid addiction rates dropped. Second, education. If we have young people who are more educated, they'll know how to recognize warning signs in their relatives and grandparents and can help. But unfortunately, I do know it's not that easy because the money does need to come from somewhere. But so little is being done to help our elderly friends and relatives. And don't even get me started on President Trump and his funding cuts to the healthcare system. And these problems that cause psychiatric disorders and loneliness and lead to suicidal ideation and addiction aren't just ever going to go away. So if we want to make a change, we need to start with the healthcare system.